Welcome back to those of you who joined us last week. We're happy to have you here on this Friday afternoon. I hope that this kind of sets the tone for your weekend. I'd also like to refer people back to the Studio B portal, where you will be able to find additional guided meditations as well as movement practices. So if you're curious and have some time this weekend, there are additional resources for you. As well as recordings. We are going to be recording today's session. So if you want to go back and take a look at it next week, it will be up for you on the Studio B portal. Right now, what I'd like to do is introduce Jenn. Some of you may have met Jenn when we were out at your office earlier this year, but this is Jenn O'Sullivan. She's been teaching yoga and mindfulness meditation in the Washington, D.C. area for over 16 years. She's also trained as an IFS coach mentor. Jenn believes in the power of yoga and meditation to nurture the human spirit and promote radical and meaningful change in our lives and in our society. Today, Jenn is going to be doing mindfulness of breathing. So I'm going to turn it over to Jenn, and I'm here in the chat. So if anybody has any questions or comments, please direct them towards me in the chat. Thanks and enjoy.
Thank you, Gretchen. It's nice to be here. And I have in my mind, I'm imagining what it was like when I was in your office and seeing some of your faces in my memory. I actually think that was one of the last things I did before things changed dramatically. So all of you have been with me this time. So like Gretchen said, I've been teaching yoga and mindfulness for a number of years. I've personally felt these practices to be very grounding and very transformative, and certainly how we navigate uncertainty. I wanted to share with you guys today mindfulness of breathing, in part because it's a really simple practice. Many of you might have already had some experience with it already. Especially if you've ever taken a yoga class, we're often invited to tune into the sensation of breathing as part of the opening or the closing of a typical yoga class. But some other things that maybe don't get realized because this practice is so simple, that it has a wide-ranging benefits for people. In particular, if you are someone who tends to experience a very fragmented inner state, maybe a lot of inner restlessness, different thoughts popping up like popcorn and have trouble settling, this practice in particular is good for focusing and grounding our ability to concentrate and stay centered. The other thing is that it signals our autonomic nervous system that we're okay. So there's a check that's happening all the time in our brain. It's kind of checking, am I okay? Am I not okay? It's really a binary. And if the answer is yes, then the body will take on processes to repair internal things that need repair, send out all different kinds of hormones to regulate and balance our internal systems, bring it into homeostasis. But if the answer is no, then it will activate that fight or flight response. So what this practice can do is, well, first of all, you would never pause and stop and focus on your breath if you weren't okay. So it's like hacking yourself a little bit. You're telling your nervous system right now, I'm okay. And then this will kick off that rest, repair, and digest process. So it's actually very soothing for the nervous system. It also has the ability to calm mild anxiety and take the edge off of stress. So this is something that a lot of us are experiencing these days in particular, this kind of rising tension. I read somewhere recently that dentists are seeing that people are grinding their teeth a lot more recently or a lot more lately. So, this is something we want to start to tune into is noticing these things in our body. And one of the ways that we do that is we learn to gather the mind away from all the different ways that it distracts us. This is a well-studied practice, most notably pioneered by a person out of the Massachusetts and the Boston area, I think it was UMass, John Kabat-Zinn. He started a program back in the 70s called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction. It's been well studied ever since. He started it with people who were experiencing chronic pain and they couldn't do anything about it. They showed a lot of improvement in what they reported for their pain. And the main technique that he teaches in the mindfulness-based stress reduction program is mindfulness of breathing, among a few other things. And then since then, he's gone on to apply his methodology to a number of disciplines. So you'll see mindfulness-based ... attached to a lot of interventions these days. So this is an ancient technique that appears in many of the Eastern wisdom traditions, yoga traditions, Buddhism, even Taoism, and all the way over in Japan. It was originally developed as a technique for cultivating focus and concentration. So we're asked to place our attention on a single object. In this case, it happens to be the breath. And then we're going to try to sustain that attention. This can be challenging in the beginning. So I don't want you to worry if you discover that your mind is quite busy and that this is a challenging practice. And on that note, it is considered to be a practice. So it's not something that we can do automatically. With continued repetition and coming back to it regularly, it does get easier and you will spend more time focused than not. And this is why we also sometimes call this practice mind training. It's not that dissimilar from going to the gym and working out your biceps. It's the more you practice, the easier it becomes and the more capacity that you have to sustain that concentration over time. And this is, in a way, if you think about it, it's very liberating, right? So one of the things that's most disturbing about not having any control over what your mind does is we don't have a say in the kinds of thoughts that pop into our head. But when we can develop the capacity to say, not right now, I'm going to stay gathered with my breath, or I'm going to stay focused on my work, or stay focused on the conversation I'm having with another human being, those intrusive thoughts will more likely fade into the background. And that's a lot of inner freedom right there, to be able to say, I'm going to choose not to go down those tangential rabbit holes that our mind will sometimes take us to. So I want to stop there and take you through the practice. I just like to give you a little brief introduction. This will be about a 12-minute practice. And before we get there, just thought I would say a couple words about getting comfortable wherever you are. I'm going to guess that most of you are probably in some kind of chair, maybe sitting at a desk. If you're sitting at home and you're in more of a sofa environment, you want to sit upright. So if you're sitting in a more relaxed, kind of loungy kind of way, you want to move up to the edge of your chair. Make sure that your feet are on the ground. I actually purposely have a really wide chair that doesn't roll around so that I can sit cross-legged in my chair. So you can do that if that's an opportunity for you. But you want your spine to be upright. This promotes an alert quality in the mind. You know, when we lean back into the chair, it creates dullness. And then you can roll your shoulders away from your chest and down away from your ears. You don't need to push them down. They'll just naturally drop if you let them go. You want to tuck your chin just a little. We sometimes, when we sit up straight, we lift our nose. So we want to level out the chin so that it's parallel to the floor. And then if it's comfortable for you, feel free to close your eyes. It's a nice environment because everybody's camera is off, so you don't have to feel self-conscious about that. If you don't feel comfortable closing your eyes, you're welcome to look down at your desk or the surface in front of you so that you can just limit the input that's coming in through the doorway of the eyes. We take in a lot of visual input, and the eyes are so oriented right next to the brain that it can be a very dominant sense. And when we're trying to turn inward, we might want to close that doorway temporarily. So once you are sitting upright, feet on the ground or cross-legged in your seat, shoulders back, eyes closed or cast downward. Last thing is to stack your hands one on top of the other and just place them in your lap. And then take a nice deep breath in through the nose. And then a nice slow breath out through the nose. Again, slow breath in through the nose. Slow breath out through the nose. And then bring your attention to the sensation of breathing in your body, wherever you feel it the strongest. So some people experience the breath in their lower abdomen. Some people more into the chest. Other people may find it easier to focus on the breath by feeling the sensation of breath right across the upper lip, where you actually feel the air flowing in and out of your nose. So wherever you feel it the strongest, let your internal gaze rest in that spot. And I'll share with you a practice from the Zen tradition on a world-renowned teacher named Thich Nhat Hanh. And so the methodology is that as you breathe in, there's a practice statement that you repeat in your mind, and you have a similar statement on the outgoing breath. So in your own mind, the next time you take a breath in, you say to yourself, breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. In, out. See if you can maintain a continuity of awareness on your breath, following a complete inhale and exhale, and the spaces in between. And your only task while watching the breath is to know that you're watching the breath, or know when you're not. Let your internal gaze be light and soft, not creating tension around your concentrated energy. So if you feel tension creeping into the body, take an extra deep breath in, and then when you breathe out, try to relax that tension and then drop back to just the sensation of breathing. And when your mind wanders away from your breath, and as soon as you notice, say to yourself in your mind, stopping. This is to indicate the stopping of our habitual way of mind wandering. And then say to yourself, returning, as you come back to the breath. So stopping when you lose track and returning to bring you back. Try to be gentle with yourself in this process of stopping and returning. Remind yourself that this is a practice, and then come back as many times as it takes. If your mind has wandered away from your breath, just come back, breathing in. I know I'm breathing in, breathing out. I know I'm breathing out. No matter what's transpired these last few minutes, you can always begin anew with each breath. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and bring your attention back to the room that you're in. Maybe even take a moment to look around before you turn to the screen and just notice the colors in your space and what you notice. And then you can come back to the Zoom. So in our time remaining together, I wanted to give you an opportunity to post any questions that might be coming up for you. You're welcome to put them in the chat, or we can unmute you. You can unmute yourself and just ask them with the group. And while you're thinking about it, I will share a tip with you about how frequently to practice this practice and the time frame that most people want. The question always is, how frequently should I be doing this, and how long do I have to do it in each sit? And the truth is that there's been a lot of research on the benefits of meditation in 30-minute increments. But to be honest with you, I think that's a big ask, especially for people just getting started. And that just happens to be the only way, the framework for these studies. There's some preliminary work coming out that says it's actually better to do smaller chunks of mindfulness spread out throughout your day, that the benefit's actually greater than trying to concentrate it just in one session. So I would recommend starting out with just 6 minutes at a time that's most convenient in your life. So some people like to start their day like this. Some people like to end their day like this. You don't have to, you could do it in, right before you fall asleep. I find it really beneficial, a little 5-6 minute sit right before a meeting, or right before a difficult conversation, or in the before time when I used to go pick up my child from school. That separation between work and school, I would sit in practice before I switched modes into family mode. So not only just looking at the bookends of your day, but also look at the rhythm of your day and see where a little 5 or 6 minute taste of mindfulness might actually help you. So, so at least once a day, 6 minutes a day. At the point that 6 minutes feels so easy and you're starting to be like, oh, that's all it was? I could stay here for, longer. Then stay longer. Don't push it out until you have that sense that, oh, I could do a little more. That went by really fast. And then add like 3 to 5 additional minutes. Okay, so don't force yourself to go to 30 minutes. That's not necessarily where the most benefit lies. So I hope that helps. That's the most common question. Looking in the chat, Gretchen posed the question, how did the meditation make you feel? And some people felt calm. Someone shared that she liked the incorporation of the sentences. It does help you to keep your mind from wandering. It's a beautiful, easy practice. And you can actually The teacher is Thich Nhat Hanh. I'll write his name in the chat because the spelling is a bit strange. But he's a famous Zen teacher, and he has whole books of these little practice phrases for different situations. So breathing in, breathing out is the easiest one. Another one I really like is breathing in, I know I'm breathing in, breathing out, I am home. So it's a sense of like coming home to yourself. It's a really sweet little phrase as well. But I'm glad that helped you. Eventually you can let that go and it feels like you don't need it anymore. Anybody else? Just a couple more minutes. If anybody else has a comment to share about the experience or any questions about the practice.
I just wanted to share one comment is
Sure.
because it's Friday afternoon, I especially like to incorporate these practices on weekend mornings when my house seems to be a little bit more hectic. Although it's hectic every day these days, but the weekends, it kind of sets the tone and it's some time that I can take for myself before everything else starts. So
Mm,
I would welcome you to try it out this weekend.
yeah, yeah. I wanted to give you a little preview of what we're going to be doing next week. I'm going to share with you a practice that is, it doesn't have a really formal name, but I call it the 3 grounds of support meditation. And it will be, it's very specifically a practice for managing turbulent transitional times or times of uncertainty, and you know that when the sense of the unknown is very close and present. And so these three grounds of support, it'll be a little familiar because mindfulness of breathing is in there, but it's 3 ways to really get in your body and out of the ways in which our mind layers in and piles on to that sense of uncertainty and unease. So that's what we're going to do next week. But we still have another couple of minutes if anybody else has anything that they want to drop in or ask about. I know you guys are science professionals, so maybe you'd be interested to know that some of the researched benefits of this practice are a reduction in stress hormones and your heart rate. If you've heard of polyvagal theory, it's said to stimulate the vagus nerve. So that's something that's a really hot thing in the wellness world these days and psychology. I mentioned John Kabat-Zinn. It's actually a really wonderful practice in better managing chronic pain conditions. And there are a lot of studies out that show that people feel happier and more emotionally stable and more pro-social with a regular practice of mindfulness of breathing. So in addition to being this ancient tradition, Western science has been really interested in what's actually happening because the empirical evidence is that it's super beneficial, and they're plugging people into functional MRIs to see exactly what's going on, looking at their blood and so forth. So.
This is Stephen. I just want to say thank you, Jennifer.
You're welcome.
This is wonderful. You know, I struggle to do 6 minutes if I'm on my own. You know, sometimes just 6 seconds is all I can do. But if that's all I can do, that's all I can do. You know, it's just a matter of trying to build in the practice into my existence, my conscious existence, and just keep breathing. And it does, you know, it does provide an opportunity just to stop and you know, just get centered and balanced. So, but yeah, I agree with Chelsea. You know, incorporating the sentences or the phrases does help. maintain some of that focus on the meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So that was excellent. Thank you again.
Yeah,
Really
you're very
useful.
welcome. Thank you all. It's been a pleasure spending this half hour with you, and I look forward to being with you next week.
Yep, take care. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Gretchen.
Thank you.
See
Have
you
a great
soon.
weekend.
Thanks.
Bye.